Assalamualaikum, very good morning and selamat sejahtera to all the participants. Thank you very much for being here with us. So welcome to our competitiveness talk, the fourth series of the talk, where this series we are going to talk about a topic called driving innovation through scientific publication. My name is Farid, so I will be your moderator for today's session. And with me, we have two great panelists to discuss this topic with us. So for the first panelist, we have Professor Dr. Zuraida Abdul Manaf. She's a professor in information management from University Technology Mara. Prof. Zuraida is an expert in information storage and retrieval resources description and discoveries. She was seconded to Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia to lead the Malaysia Citation Center, MCC, from October 2015 to February 2020. So I would like to welcome Prof. Zuraida to the session. Prof. Hello, Prof. How are you?
Yes.
Assalamualaikum.
Fine. Thank you, Farid. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to all. So good morning also, Mr. Wong. Thank you, MPC, for inviting me to participate in this forum.
Okay. All right. Our second panelist is Mr. Wong Poh Wen. He's an experienced consultant with 18 years of involvement in training, consulting, and research projects with industries and government agencies, including MPC, Malaysia Productivity Corporation, where he involved in various projects of process improvement, as well as research work in World Competitiveness Index. He is also an expert, a certified Six Sigma Master Black Belt, where he led the Quality Institute of Motorola University for Asia Pacific and Middle East region back in 2003 until 2010. So I would like to welcome Mr. Wong to the session. Hello, Mr. Wong. Good morning.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Farid.
How are you?
Greetings to you. Yep, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Farid, for the kind introduction. Hello, Prof. Dr. Zuraida, and also welcome to all the participants in this webinar.
Okay, right. So we will be discussing this topic. I think it's going to be interesting because both panelists, they are experts in their respective field, and they will share their opinion and maybe some ideas about this topic. Maybe just to shed some lights on the topic here. According to World Economic Forum in their annual report of GCR, or Global Competitiveness Report 2019, Malaysia was ranked on number 27 in overall based on the 12 drivers of productivity or pillars. So one of the pillar is called an innovation capability, where under the pillar they evaluated several indicators, and one of the indicator is the scientific publication. So we can see that how it contributes to the innovation capability of a country. So I think our panel will share more on this. So I would like to actually start with the first focus topic for this session, which is we are going to focus on the impact of the scientific publication to the country. So my first question goes to Prof. Zuraida. Prof, so maybe just to kickstart the session, as the introduction, can you briefly share with us what is scientific publication and what is the relation with the innovation? Over to you, Prof.
Oh. So thank you for the question, Mr. Farid. To answer to your question, let me start with research. So when we talk about research, research plays a crucial role in the development and dissemination of knowledge. And the outcome of this research, no matter in a form of product, services, new idea, etc., is considered as research output. And in order to contribute to the advancement of knowledge, this research output needs to be published in sufficient and detailed accuracy to enable others to understand, elaborate, and get benefits and advantages from the research findings. And no research, scientific research, is complete without its formal dissemination, prominently in the form of scientific publication, which is also known as scholarly publication. So scientific publication have been widely used to measure scientific capacity and linkages to world science. So basically, scholar will create scientific knowledge, evaluate and share the knowledge with peers, and public through publication. And whatever published by the scholar, they need to guarantee the integrity and quality of the information, because this information will be used by various group of people for various purposes. So the whole system, starting from research till dissemination of publication, is considered as scholarly communication, which is a system intended to disseminate research findings, new knowledge in a timely manner, and guarantee scholar integrity and quality. Next. Next slide, please. Okay, and when we talk about driving innovation through scientific publication, of course, they are very much interrelated. The objective of research is contributing to knowledge, whereas the objective of innovation is contributing to outcome. Example, improvement quality of services or product, commercialization, etc. Hence, research can lead to innovation. Since we entered the digital age, the global economy has been transforming the commodity-based industry to knowledge-based industry. And the future economic leaders are countries that excel in innovation and R&D. Next. If we look at the historical of scientific publication, it started in 1665, where Henry Oldenburg, the editor of Philosophical Transaction of the Royal Society, began the practice of sending manuscript to experts who could judge their quality and be for publication. Since that day, peer review process has been one of the criteria for scientific publication to uphold not only the quality and validity of individual articles, but the overall integrity of the publication. Next. To qualify a publication as a scholarly journal, it must have these basic 13 criteria. It is important for any scholars to know about the criteria of scholarly journal, because there are a lot of predatory journals in the market which need to be avoided by the scholars. Next. In 2018, STM reported there are 33,100 active index scholarly peer-reviewed journals, publish more than 2.5 million articles a year, and the number of articles published each year and the number of journals have both grown steadily for over 2 centuries by about 3 to 3.5% per year. It's a lot. So scholars need to be selective to submit their manuscript to ensure their paper will be visible and discoverable. Next. We talk about visibility of scholarly output. Okay, so it is very important and very crucial, because number one, the spirit behind why scholar published is to disseminate new knowledge. So it needs to be visible so that the knowledge will be spread widely. Two, if the paper is visible, the probability of it being read and cited is high and will increase the impact of the research. 3, visibility is needed to establish the researcher's reputation. And finally, visibility is important because if not, the knowledge will just be vanish. Next. When we talk about visibility again, visibility of scientific publication will have high probability to be read and cited. With high citation received, it will increase the author's H index and the journal's impact factors. and these metrics are normally used as measurement of scholarly impact. Thus, it is very important for scholars or researchers to get published in high-impact journal because we want the research output to be visible and get attention. There is no point of publishing a very good research output, but nobody noticed or referring to it, and the knowledge will just get lost and undiscoverable. So basically, in order for any innovation to be success, it must be built from empirical findings, which can be obtained from scientific publication. Thus, it is very crucial to ensure the visibility of scientific publication. Well, Cik Farid, I think that's all from me.
Right. Thank you very much, Prof, for a very informative elaboration there. I think it's very interesting when Prof tried to actually recap, bring us back to the very fundamental of the publication. Maybe some of us, maybe including academician, we don't know about the origin of the publication. For me, it's very interesting. And get to know that Henry Oldenburg started the publication. And then Prof also mentioned about the correlation between the visibility of the research and the innovation, which actually is very related. And this makes the scientific publication relevant when it comes to innovation.
Yes.
So I would like to actually move to our second panelist here to get maybe different point of view. Mr. Wong, based on your current research, because I come to know you actually involved directly in the research related to these indicators about the scientific publication, how is Malaysia's performance in scientific publication and innovation compared to other countries in international assessment? Over to you, Mr. Wong.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Farid. So let me start by saying that there are two international organizations performing assessment annually on competitiveness across different countries and economies in the world. The first one shown here on this slide is the Global Competitiveness Report published by the World Economic Forum. And in this competitiveness report, an index, an overall competitiveness index called the Global Competitiveness Index 4.0, in short, the GCI 4.0, is used as an overall index to assess and rank the countries or economies according to their competitiveness. The other international organization also producing such a report on competitiveness of countries and economies on an annual basis is the IMD, which stands for the International Institute for Management Development, the IMD's World Competitiveness Yearbook. Okay, so my recent research was on the performance of Malaysia's competitiveness in the GCR, the Global Competitiveness Report, in short, the GCR. So I will focus on this particular report on the scientific publication score and rank and how it contributes towards the overall competitiveness score for the country. So this GCR, or rather the Global Competitiveness Index, GCI 4.0, covers 141 countries or economies in the world. And this index measures national competitiveness, which is defined as the set of institutions, policies, and factors that determine the level of productivity of the country or of the economy. Next slide, please. So as what was introduced by Mr. Farid earlier on, the overall score on competitiveness for Malaysia in this GCR for the year 2019 report, you can see on the left side of this chart, it is 27 out of 141 countries. We ranked 27 with an overall GCI index score of 75 out of 100. 100 is the maximum score. And like what Mr. Farid mentioned earlier, there are 12 pillars contributing to this overall score of competitiveness. The 12 pillars being four of them in the enabling environment category, and then the next two in human capital, next four in the markets, and the final two under innovation ecosystem. So this scientific publication is inside this pillar number 12, the last pillar, called innovation capability. And you can see Malaysia has the score of 55, which is the lowest compared to all the other pillars for Malaysia. Next, please. To look deeper into this, so this table here on the left shows a more detailed view of all the 12 pillars, each pillar contributing an equal percentage of 8.3% to the overall GCI 4.0 score. And in pillar 12, there are actually 10 indicators. So, but I forgot to mention earlier on, altogether there are 103 indicators in the 12 pillars that aggregate to the overall GCI index value and score. So in pillar 12, we have 10 of them, and scientific publications is one of the indicators in this pillar. Next slide, please. So let's look at Malaysia's 3-year performance from 2017 to 2018 for scientific publication indicator, which is named which is numbered as indicator 12.05. Okay, we see that the way to measure the scientific publication performance under this GCR report is using the H index. Here you notice the H index is a capital H because it is aggregated at the country level or aggregated to the country level from the small H index at the individual author or researcher level, the author who produces scientific publication. So if you look at the H index value over the years, Malaysia has actually improved in the H index value. We have 251.3. The reason why there is a 0.3 is because this is an average of the H indexes of the 3 preceding years from 2016 to 2018. So for every year, the average of the past 3 years H indexes are taken and then put as the H index value for the year. And because of the H index increasing over the years, our score has also been increasing slightly, 80.2 in 2017, and then you can see 81.9 in 2019. However, the rank has maintained the same. The rank for Malaysia in this scientific publication has maintained at 44 out of 141 countries over the 3 years. I believe this is because as we are improving, other countries are also improving. So our score, or our rank rather, has maintained at the same rank without any improvement. Next slide, please. So if we look at how this score for indicator 12.05, which is scientific publications, is determined, the score of 81.9, as you can see here, is actually starting with, like I mentioned earlier, the country level H index. The country level H index on scientific publications. Actually, H index refers to citation. It's measurement of citation for the scientific publication. And then there is this transformation using logarithmic transformation on the H index value before the value is normalized to come up with a score of between 0 to 100 on a scale of 0 to 100. And there is also a statistical method called winsorization in order to eliminate the outlier or extreme values. And in this winsorization method or process, the frontier performance, frontier here refers to the best-in-class performance. The H index will be capped at this frontier level. So for year 2019, the H index is capped at 855. So all countries which have the H index of 855 or higher will automatically get the score of 100, which is the maximum score. As you can see in the table there, we have United States, United Kingdom, and so on, all the way to Switzerland, These are the top 9 countries. That means rank number 1 to number 9 in terms of scientific publications. They have the full score of 100 because the H index value of this country is 855 and above. Some of them are actually much higher than 855, like United States. And for Malaysia, you can see the comparison here. Malaysia is at 44 out of 141 countries, with our H index of 251.3, and the normalized score is 81.9 out of 100. So next slide, please. So let's take a look at what is this H index and how it is calculated. So as I mentioned earlier, H index starts at the individual level, the individual researcher and individual scientific papers or scholarly papers. So on the chart on the left here, if you were to order the papers written by a particular author or researcher according to the number of citations received for each paper, you order the paper in descending order. When you reach the point where the citations equals to papers equals to H, that is your H index. That means number of citations is same as the number of papers. That is the H index we are talking about. So for example, if we have a researcher with 5 publications, A, B, C, D, E, and with 10, 8, 5, 4, and 3 citations respectively, the H index for this researcher will be equal to 4, because the 4th publication has 4 citations. So we have number of publications same as number of citations, right? So 4 publications with at least 4 citations, at least 4 citations for each of them. And the 5th one has only 3, so we can't have a H index of 5 because we don't have 5 publications with at least 5 citations. We only have 4 with at least 4 citations. So in contrast, if we look at the same 5 publications, and let's say the first one is a very high impact, very useful, very visible, and a lot of people refer to it and give it many citations. It receives 25 citations. The second publication, 8, and then 5 and 3, and the 5th one, only 3 citations. The H index is actually lower than the first case just now. It's at 3 because there are only 3 publications with more than equal or more than 3 citations. The 4th paper has only 3 citations, so we cannot have the H index go to 4 unless the 4th paper get 1 more citation. If the 4th paper get 1 more citation and move to 4, then we can move the H index from 1 level from 3 to 4, because now we will have 4 papers with at least 4 citations. So remember, H index is equals the number of citations equal to the number of papers, or rather I would say in summary, the number of papers with at least the same number of citations for each paper. So next, please. So I did a box plot to look at the distribution of the H indexes for all the 141 countries reported in the 2019 GCR. But for the box plot, I actually just look at the year 2018 H index. That means I'm not looking at the average of 3 years, but just looking at the latest, which is at that time, the 2018 H index was the latest. So looking at the 2018 H index for all the countries and putting them in a box plot, we can see that the median H index for year 2018 is actually 174 for all the 141 countries. And Malaysia is at 281, which is actually much higher compared to the median. But at the same time, we also see there are about 10 countries, I think, with what we call outlier H index. That means much higher and much better H index, with the US being way higher than the rest. You see the US has 2,222 in the H index value. In the table at the bottom, you can see that also on the bottom right side. So this means that there are 2,222 scientific publications in US with at least 2,222 citations. And similarly for United Kingdom, There's 1373 H index value for 2018, and so on. So we have a long way to go in order to be on par with these countries in terms of H index performance. Okay, before we move on, actually you don't see China inside here. Just wanted to point out that actually China just missed the top 10. Maybe China is number 11 or number 12. Although China, in terms of H index, the performance is not as good as these top 10 countries, but it is catching up. China as a country is catching up. So in 2018, the number of publications, scientific publications in China is close to 600,000 per year. 2018, 600,000 per year, and maybe only a 10,000 difference from the US, which is number 1. But come to 2019, the latest report or the latest summary in the Scopus database, which is an international database for publications and citations, showed that China as a country has now has 670,000, around 670,000 published scholarly papers, and US still around 600,000 only. So China has overtaken the US in terms of number of scientific publications, but for H index, they are still behind. Next slide, please. So now I did also a study to look at the correlation between H index and the more easily understood metrics of number of citable documents or number of scientific publications, number of citations, and logically, it makes sense that just to confirm that there's a strong correlation here, and logically it makes sense that there is a strong correlation between a number of published papers. We call it citable documents in the Scopus database. So you can see on this scatter plot and regression plot that there is a strong correlation between number of citable documents, which is number of scientific publications, and the H index. So if we have more scientific publications, we tend to have higher H index. So next, please. The next correlation or regression plot shows that a number of citations will drive H index, which is logical. We expect that, and this confirms it. The more number of citations we have, the higher the tendency of the H index for the individual as well as for the country in this case. We are measuring the country here in this case. So next, please. And lastly, between citable documents and citation, of course, it is also expected that the more scientific papers we have, we will tend to have more citations received for those papers. Although there are actually a lot of scientific papers published today, I mean in the past as well as today, that nobody reads them, a big percentage, nobody reads them, or even if people read them, they do not make a reference or give citation to those papers. So the H index used in the GCR actually focuses not only on the productivity of the scientific publication, that is the output of scientific publication in terms of numbers, but it also focuses on the impact by looking at the number of citations received. So it is combining impact of the publication as well as the productivity of the publication in one measure called the H index. And the GCR uses that to determine scientific publication performance in the country. That's all from me for this part. Back to you, Mr. Farid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong, for your research finding, sharing a lot of interesting information there, especially when you actually mention about our current standing, or Malaysia standing in terms of ranking for the scientific publication is being stagnant, but with the fact that we are making progress. So in other words, maybe we are running fast, but not fast enough, Mr. Wong. So I think that is something that we can learn there, because we need to actually see some other initiatives in order to cope with other countries. And also interesting totally. When, sorry, yes, Mr. Wong?
I totally agree with you on that point, Mr. Farid.
And then it's also interesting when Mr. Wong actually highlighting the gap when I say Malaysia H index was like 281, and the top 5 countries, there are 1,000 above. So we can see it's quite a huge gap between us and the top 5 countries. So and some more with the highest, US is 2,222, even higher. So we need to actually, if we cannot look at the highest, maybe we can look at the number 5, at the top 5, 1,000 there, where the gap is quite huge there. So we need to actually address how we can actually cope up with these top 5 to be among the best. And also, it's interesting when I see the correlation there. So it kind of give a picture of what needs to be done next. In the correlation, saying that the more publication, more H index. Yes, and then even stronger correlation saying that the higher citation, the higher H index. So it's not just the quantity of the publication; it's also about the quality, where people actually recognize your work, and so that it is really becomes citable. Right, I think this, thank you very much, Mr. Wong. It's a very interesting research finding there. So I think we actually finish discussing the first focus topic here, which is talking about the impact of scientific publication. And then we are coming to the second focus topic, which is we're going to talk about the challenges. Now we know what scientific publication is and then the current standing, and we want to elaborate further on the challenges behind what need to be done. Okay, what are the improvement that need to be done to actually move forward with our scientific publication in Malaysia? I think the next question goes to Prof. Zuraida. Prof, what is the current trend now and the future trend for the scientific publication in our country? Okay, can you share with us? And then what are the challenges in improving scientific publication in our country? Over to you, Prof. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farid. So I'm going to discuss about the challenges before proceed sharing data on the current trends. So previously we discussed on the importance and the needs for scientific publication to be visible. And the spirit behind the visibility is to ensure that the new knowledge created and invented need to be made known and used widely. As mentioned by Mr. Wong, H-index used as the measurement is based on individual citation. And for paper to catch citation, it needs to be visible. So this is the biggest challenge, how to make it visible. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, here I would like to share the trend of Malaysia's scholarly output in Scopus. The figure shows that Malaysians have a very strong growth in scientific publication output since 2007 onwards. So it indicates that the culture of writing and publish is already embedded in our researchers. However, the questions are, do this publication receive any attention? How many people read it? How many people cite it in their work? And what is the impact of this publication? Next. Next. So we are going to look at the major issues and challenges of this scientific publication. There are 15 million articles and the numbers are growing from time to time. However, 50% are never read and 90% are never cited. As a result, good ideas created that could driving innovation are just getting lost because nobody aware of its existence. There are few scholarly journals published in Malaysia for the past 30 years with a very good research-based content, but the usage is only within institutions. You can claim that your articles published in Q1 journal, but how can you ensure that people will read and cite your work? So this is what faced by the scholar. They have come out with a very impactful research, but it did not lead to innovation because it is not visible. Next. Next. So ladies and gentlemen, The success of a scientific publication depends on developing a loyal readership who will become part of the scholarly community, citing the content and tell others about the value of the publication. In order for this to transpire, the journal needs to be discovered, and one of the mechanisms, okay, there's a lot more, but one of the mechanisms to be visible is that the journal needs to be indexed. Next. And being indexed in a known database, namely Scopus, Web of Science, and so on, will help increase journals' readership and make it available to all users of the database. And indexation of a journal is considered a reflection of its quality and are considered to be of higher scientific quality as compared to non-indexed journal. So, Mr. Farid, if you want to get promotion, we have to publish in index journal. Okay. And when we talk about index, okay, there are various types of index, but only citation index databases capable to measure the impact of scholarly publication using international metrics such as citation, H-index, impact factor, field-weighted citation impact, and etc. And this is because the database did not only capture the metadata of the article, but it will track the citation or references used. Next. And for your information, there are 4 main citation databases that Malaysian scholars should pay attention to. The first one is MySite. Okay, this platform developed by MCC, and I consider MySite as a national citation database because that is the only citation database that captures our local scholarly output. Next, we have ACI, and this is a platform which is managed by ASEAN Citation Index Steering Committee centered in Thailand, and Malaysia is one of the content provider for this platform, and selected journal from MySite will be evaluated and recommended to the ACI yearly. And finally, I think most of our scholars are aware of Scopus and Web of Science, which has been regarded as the most highly authoritative citation database. Next. So, ladies and gentlemen, using a bibliometric analysis, now I'm going to share some of the performance of Malaysia's scholarly output. The data taken from citation index databases, namely MyJournal, MySite, Scopus, and Web of Science. For Scopus data, allow me to convey my gratitude to Mr. Alex, Senior Consultant Research Intelligence, Elsevier, Singapore, and also Mr. Muhammad Yazid Ismail, statistician from Citation and Infometric Division, for helping me to get the data. During MCO, it is quite difficult for me to make movement and to get the data. So this is the figure. This figure shows the Malaysian scholarly journals indexations 2018-2019. It indicates that from 667 journals title indexed in MyJournal repository, only 238 journals indexed in MySite, 133 in ACI, 98 in Scopus, 77 in ESI was, and 14 in JCR. Looking at the number, we should strategize to get more Malaysian journals indexed in the international platform so that the research output of the country are visible, being referred to, and give impact to the scientific community and scholarly communication. Next. This is the detailed data of MyJournal repository, which is one of MCC's product, and it is an open access repository. Currently, we have about 667 Malaysian journals comprised of more than 87,000 full-text articles indexed in the repository. The major contributors of this repository is the higher learning institutions. Next. And this is my site data, which I consider as the national citation database because there is no other citation database in Malaysia. So journals in my journal repository will be evaluated yearly based on a set of quality criteria and selected to be included in my site. If you notice that the number of journals in my journal are 667, but only 283 fulfill the quality standard and accepted in my site database. The rest of the journals still need to improve their publishing quality. Next. This figure demonstrates that more Malaysian journals are submitted and indexed in my journal. And we can also see that the publishing quality of Malaysian journals are also improving by more are coming to my site. Next. Next, okay, and next. We are going to see Malaysian performance at international platform. Just now it's a local platform, but this one is international platform. We start with Web of Science. Next. From this slide, we can see that there are more than 150,000 documents by Malaysian institutions indexed in Web of Science within 2014 to 2019. Those documents receive more than 900,000 citations for the past 5 years, with 59.6% documents are cited. However, in terms of CNCI, it has not crossed the world average yet, still 0.98. Okay. Next, we go to Scopus. Next slide, please. Okay, in Scopus, there are more than 190,000 documents by Malaysian institution indexed in Scopus within the same period, 2014-2019. And those documents receive more than 1.2 million citations for the past 5 years, which makes the field-weighted citation at 1.0. So this data indicates that we have reached the world average of FWCI. Next. The increment of quantity and quality of Malaysia's scholarly output can be seen in this figure. It is very obvious when we compare at Malaysia's performance from RMK 9, 10, and 11. Okay. In RMK 9, there are more than 45,000 documents with field-weighted citation impact only 0.77. Okay, but in RMK 11, there are more than 135,000 documents with field-weighted citation impact 1.03. It shows that with the effort of all parties, we have managed to cross the world average in terms of impacts. Means that more people citing and use our scientific publication. Next. Okay, so here I would like to share data comparison made with ASEAN countries. The data shown that Indonesia has risen to produce more papers in all document types compared with other countries, and they have passed Malaysia in 2018. Next slide. Okay, However, their field-weighted citation impact is still below world average compared to Malaysia's, which has risen to world average level. So this means that it is not only we have to focus on the quantity, how many should we publish, but the most important thing is the quality of the content, as well as we have to make sure that our publication visible to the world. And in terms of papers in top quartile journal, of course, Singapore produced the highest volumes. So I think Mr. Farid and all participants, that's all about the current performance of Malaysia's scholarly output. Hopefully it gives some rough idea to all participants on where we are now and how we should strategize to improve our performance. As mentioned by Mr. Wong in GCI, this indicator for innovation received the lowest compared with other indicators. Is it true, Mr. Wong?
Yes, that's true.
You mentioned just now. So obviously something needs to be done so that we can improve our ranking in GCI. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. A lot of data there. It's very interesting. It's a very in-depth analysis of the Malaysian performance. And it's very interesting when Prof actually mentioned about Malaysia's scholarly output is actually increased. It's not that our academicians or our scholars not publish. They are actually keep on publishing more, papers. Yeah, there is a significant increment from 1996 to 2017. And then so interesting when Prof point out the needs to strategize the indexation, because the importance of the visibility which give impact in terms of the publication or scholarly publication. So I think that will actually give some room for improvement for us to think. As we know, we are actually running fast, but not fast enough. I think Prof also mentioned about the Malaysian publication performance in the international level is actually reaching the international standard level, but then yet we are still behind. So I think this can be a platform to actually brainstorm on how can we actually go forward. Something that needs to be done in terms of strategizing. Because when we talk about the publication, usually we talk about the universities, institution of higher learning. But then, what about others, businesses, or maybe research institution? They also have their own publication. But how we can make all those things become visible? This is one of the concern as well that we can discuss, whether we can strategize towards actually synergize all these resources. Including businesses, for example, the big companies which involve innovation, sometimes they also publish papers. And as well as the research institution, we have a lot of research institution. I believe they also have their own journals, right? But how visible their journal is, that is something that we need to look at to synergize. It's not just from universities, but we need to actually see from the point of view of different players. For example, businesses, and then we have as research institutions as resources to actually build up our H index. I think that, thank you very much, Prof. That is very great information there. So I think now we have a picture of our current situation now in terms of scientific publication, as well as a lot of information there. Especially, I think when it comes to academicians, it reminds them of their KPI. Thank you, Prof, for reminding me of my KPI just now. Okay, all right. I think moving on, we are coming to the third focus topic here. So we actually have discussed the background of the scientific publication. We actually discussed the international assessments. We have discussed the Malaysian Malaysian achievement in terms of a publication. Now we would like to actually moving on to, I think before we move on to the third focus topic, we would like to open up for Q&A. While the participant is still fresh, a lot of questions maybe from the previous presentation by Prof and Mr. Wong. maybe we can take up one or two questions from the audience. So for audience, you are feel free to ask questions. So I will try to pick up, and then I will actually pass it to our panel. So I'm looking for a question now. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. Maybe from Secretariat, is there any question? Okay, I think I received one question here from, I don't know who's the sender. Okay, this question asking about why are we too far away from top 10 country on scientific publication? What are the main reason of not being competitive on this? This is a very interesting question. Maybe both of our panel would like to share their opinion on this. Maybe I can start with Mr. Wong first. Give Prof to rest a bit. Okay, Mr. Wong, do you have any opinion on this? Because why the gap is very huge? Maybe they wonder because as presented by Prof just now, we have shown quite a significant improvement in terms of publication. Over to you, Mr. Wong.
Okay, okay, thank you. In my opinion, well, are we that bad compared to all the other countries in the world? In my opinion, not so. Yeah, I mean, of course, we compare to the developed nations in US, in Europe, yeah, and also developed countries in Asia Pacific. We are behind. Yeah? We are behind them. But looking at the box plot I showed earlier, we are actually much higher than the median. We look at the median for H index, and thereafter for the performance of scientific publications, according to the way the Global Competitiveness Report measures it, we are not so bad. Yeah? Of course, over the years, we have seen improvement. We have seen improvement in terms of the numbers published, in terms of the H index improving, but it's not fast enough, like Mr. Farid mentioned. We are running, yeah, but not fast enough. Yeah, other countries are also running, and some of them are faster and catching up with us. And of course, the developed countries, those big countries with higher population and more R&D related activities, and more research universities, and more structured collaboration between industry and universities and government, will continue to move faster and create a bigger and bigger gap compared to other countries, especially developing countries, and Malaysia is one of them. So I think in this area, why are we lagging behind? It is, of course, we need to come up with some fiscal policy and also some reforms in terms of the infrastructure to promote and stimulate these scientific publications in our country. Yeah? And also collaboration between industry and university, and also how to move universities from just teaching universities to become research universities, and thereafter to become entrepreneurship institution. Because in Malaysia today, I think we only have five fully considered as full research universities. So it's not sufficient in order to generate more scientific publication, and as well as generate a higher index for the H index. That's my view.
It is interesting about that, and then maybe you can straight away share with us about some best practices from international practices that can possibly be adapted to actually move forward in scientific publication.
Yeah, sure. Okay, if we go on to maybe the next slide, I will start sharing. Okay, so first of all, I would like to, for us to zoom out, take a step back and zoom out, and look at how scientific publications fit into the entire value chain, leading to competitiveness and growth of the nation, as you can see on this diagram, which I call an indicator driver map. So we see that scientific publications contribute towards innovation capability, in the diagram or in the map, and innovation capability in turn contribute towards competitiveness and growth of the nation. But what drives scientific publication? Okay, to me, the key driver is R&D, the level of R&D, the R&D activities. And next, we ask ourselves, what drives R&D then? And to me, again, a major driver of R&D activities will be industry-academia collaboration, structured way, in a structured way. But of course, also with government involvement to spearhead or stimulate this collaboration. Next, please. So now I would like to touch on some international best practice related not to scientific publications alone, but the bigger ecosystem of R&D and innovation as well. So we look at this triple helix model of university, industry, government linkages, which is used to stimulate and collaborate on R&D. This is not something new. This is a model that has been practiced for a long time in developed countries, especially in the West, in US and also in European Union countries. And nowadays also adopted by many countries in the Asia Pacific region successfully, like China and Japan. So if you look at the diagram here, in a knowledge-based society, the triple helix diagram on the right of the slide here, in a knowledge-based society, university, industry, and government play their respective roles and form a triple helix in stimulating R&D and innovation. In this triple helix model, we see that there's knowledge exchange on new product ideas and innovation between industry and universities. And industry would provide jobs and taxes to the government, with the government providing the necessary infrastructure in return to stimulate the collaboration and R&D activities. As government will also provide research funding along with their strategic demands on universities, especially on those research universities. Next, please. Okay, let's look at the U.S. situation. The case in U.S. There's been a long-standing tradition of close ties and collaboration between companies and universities in the U.S., which enable the formation and development of innovation hubs, or we call them clusters, such as the world-famous Silicon Valley that we know of in California state, south of San Francisco City. Here's where we find the big tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Intel, Netflix, Google, Nvidia, and Tesla have their headquarters located. And another innovation cluster in the US, ranked second after Silicon Valley, is Boston's Route 128, also nicknamed the America's Technology Highway, with great research universities like MIT and Harvard, and many tech companies located in the area, especially pharmaceutical-related tech companies like GlaxoSmithKline, for example. And yet another prominent innovation cluster in the US is the Research Triangle of North Carolina. These innovation clusters has all benefited from the academia, these innovation clusters has actually benefited tremendously, the academia, in terms of transformation of universities from being just teaching university to move on to become research university and then to an entrepreneurial institution. Next, please. So with this close collaboration between companies and universities in the US, we see that there is strong support in funding by the industry for university R&D. As shown in the chart here, industry funding for university R&D has grown by more than 5.5% per year on average over 10 years, from about 2.4 billion in 2006 to more than 4.2 billion in 2016 in the US. Next, please. Okay, the next slide here, look at some impressive numbers related to technology transfer from academia, from universities, which drives the innovation economy in the US. From 1996 to 2015, we see that up to 1.3 million US dollars contribution to the US gross industrial output from academic technology transfer. And then we have 591 billion US dollars of contribution to the GDP of the US, 4.3 million jobs supported, 380,000 plus inventions and US patent issued, 80,000 plus US patent issued to research institutions in the past 25 years. And also at the bottom, you can see 11,000 plus startup companies formed since 1995, 70% of university innovations licensed to startups and small companies, and 200 plus drugs and vaccines developed through public-private partnerships since 1980 in the US. So here we see that with close collaboration, close ties between industry and the academia in the US allowed or enabled academic technology transfer to drive the innovation economy in the US. The next slide, please. Now we look at China, the situation in China, or the case in China, and see how this triple helix model is successfully applied there to drive R&D, contributing towards China's innovation ecosystem. You can see in the diagram here that joint R&D institutes are set up within research universities, collaborating with international enterprises under China's innovation system here in this triple helix model. The research universities in China have the responsibility for achieving the objectives of the government, especially in initiatives related to higher education and science and technology. And they are also given the priority to receive governmental R&D grants. Next, please. So as an example for China, we look at the successful application of the triple helix collaboration at the Tsinghua University, which is considered as a flagship research university in China. Tsinghua University have 31 joint international research collaboration centers established by them with prominent international companies, such as those shown with their logos shown on this slide here: Siemens, United Technologies, HP, Boeing, and more, like Toshiba, Bayer, Intel, and so on. Next slide, please. Similarly, in Japan, we also have the triple helix model in operation to promote collaboration to enable more R&D activities. And in Japan, they call it the Center of Innovation Program, which supports the industry-academia collaboration to tackle fundamental, multi, and disciplinary R&D in topics of high risk, but with high societal relevance, spearheaded by the Japan Science and Technology Agency, which is part of the government, one of the agencies in the government. Center of Innovation sites are set up with collaboration between companies and universities. And companies make appropriate contributions in terms of financial, human, and other in-kind resources. Okay. Actually, for Malaysia, there is also evidence of this triple helix model implementation, but just that the level of structured R&D is not sufficient. We're still lacking in that area. We have, for example, the quasi-government organization called CREST, which serves as an industry-led platform to promote collaboration in R&D in the electrical and electronic engineering domain. Yeah, we also have the government agency called MITE, Malaysian Industry Government Group on High Technology, which is part of the Prime Minister's Department. In the Prime Minister's Department, also stimulating R&D activities between industry and academia. And lastly, we also have MOSTI, of course. MIMOS, of course. We have MIMOS, which is part of MOSTI, an agency under MOSTI, also providing the platform of R&D collaboration between industry, government, and also academia. Next, please. Okay, I would like to now share another best practice from the industry this time, particularly from high-tech multinational companies that promote R&D activities and scientific publications, which I have myself experienced during my career at Motorola. High-tech companies such as the one shown here typically have a technical career ladder for their technical or engineering staff, which allows for upgrading or promotion without needing a vacant position to be available. Unlike in the traditional management career ladder, a vacant position usually needs to be there for promotion to take place. Here you can see two examples of the technical career ladder, the one on the right being for software engineers. Just to note, I used to work in Motorola for 23 plus years, a long time, and I was in the technical ladder for a period of time in the middle of my tenure there, before moving back to the management ladder when I left the factory environment, semiconductor factory environment, and assumed a corporate role. Next slide, please. And in the technical ladder that I was talking about just now, upgrading and promotion requires not available or vacancy, but actually successful completion of technical projects with report submission. Patent applications, defensive publications, and scientific publications carry higher weightage, and presentation of papers at conferences or symposiums are encouraged, such as those organized by IEEE or NAPCON in the electrical and electronic engineering domain. And also specific criteria is spelled out for upgrading or promotion at every step of the technical ladder, and there is a technical committee to review applications for promotion and upgrading. So that is the international best practices that I have to share with all of you today. Back to you, Mr. Farid.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wong. That is a very interesting sharing there. Mr. Wong actually sharing with us some international best practices and correlate with the previous question just now. And it's very interesting when Mr. Wong actually elaborate on the collaboration there. I think one of the way forward, one of the things that it can be actually think of is to strengthen this, as we see from the case study that Mr. Wong presented just now, the case of US, the case of China, where they have a very strong collaboration. In fact, in terms of funds, they are growing. They are growing in terms of research fund from the industry. I think this is something that can be actually considered seriously, and some parties can champion this, because we need a champion to actually lead the way, right? To actually spearhead this effort, because it is very difficult to just be talking like that, and then there is no leader in this to actually cater with all this required work of the collaborations, and then the funds of industries. This is interesting because one of the factors which are affecting the poor publication outcome is a insufficient fund, right? Okay, so because universities keep on fighting for that FRGS, PRGS, and then the private university just get a slide of it. So that's why it's kind of affecting the outcome. So one of these source of fund is actually collaboration with industries. But how industries would like to actually trust the academia, that is another story, right? Because academia need to as well upgrade and level up their knowledge so that they can meet the expectation of industry. I think this is something interesting that can be discussed longer than this session. I think one of the key point there. Okay, right. We are still in the Q&A session. Maybe I want to come back from that question just now to Prof. In case you have any opinion on that. Why is that we have a huge gap in terms of publication from your perspective, Prof?
Okay, if we recap back. Okay. If we recap back, I showed the figure of Malaysia's scholarly output 1996-2017. Okay, we can see a huge incremental in the scholarly outputs starting 2007. Okay, so I think this is where the government start to come up with research universities. So they have more research to be conducted by this research university. And if we look at the data that we have, okay, we can see that University Malaya is the biggest contributor to this scholarly output of the nations. Okay, so that's why if you see ranking in QS and so on, University Malaya rank has come to I think 57 for this year. So it is a good improvement in terms of ranking and all that. Okay, so I think more and more, as mentioned by Mr. Wong, everybody is running. We are also running, but whether we need to strategize the way how we should run so that we can be at par with other countries also. I mean, the 10 top countries that produce scientific publication.
Okay. Prof, maybe hang in there, because I think I have one more interesting question for you. I think, is research funding a strong predictor for scientific performance? Did you see any correlation with this?
I can't hear.
This question is asking about the correlation. Is funding? Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. The question sounds like, is research funding a strong predictor for scientific performance?
Well, personally, I think yes, because only from research you can produce a good scientific publication. So, as you mentioned just now, the FRGS, the PRGS, and all that, the biggest being received by the public institution. The private institution also, they need to be on the board lah. Means that they also need to come up with research and produce more impactful scientific publication. Because I think it is no matter whether you are public or you are private, but it is important for us in higher learning institution to ensure that our ranking is keep on improving. And if you look at any ranking system, be it QS, THE, and so on, minimum 40% of the indicator is for scientific publication, and it is in the form of citation. So I think if you are in higher learning institutions, I think you cannot run away from research and also to publish. Okay, so I think it is a strong correlation, because if not, if you don't have the fund, you will not doing the research. So it is just like, once you have the fund, you can do research and you can produce research output that can drive to innovation. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Maybe I can share one more question here. I think it goes to Mr. Wong. This is because this is industry related. We can see this question is concerned with the existence of the spin-off companies by the universities. But sometimes this spin-off company, it cannot generate revenue and it causes loss. So how the private higher learning institution can actually come into action and contribute to this?
Okay, now this is not an easy question to answer. I think, okay, when we talk about spin-off, here we are maybe looking at startup companies. During the startup stage, of course, the companies need a lot of support in terms of resources, like financial resources, especially. So here, I believe the government can help here to provide some incentives and funding to support such startup company. For example, there are incubator centers, right, in some universities that serves as serves as a platform to groom or to develop these startup companies and to help them, support them until they become profitable, yeah, so to speak. Yeah. So that's my thinking. These startup companies may start off as just like SME, so they will require SME type of incentive and help from the government.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wong. I think, yeah, because this question also concerned about the role that can be played by private institution rather than just depending solely on the fund from the governments, which is actually when we talk about the public universities, that I mean most of the funds is actually from the governments, and for private institution or private universities, actually they are actually struggling with their own funds. So maybe in other way they are also contributing with their own efforts and own maybe one independent support from governments to private institution to actually move forward with this. Right, maybe we are actually shortage of time, running out of time here. We have 9 more minutes. I think we should actually proceed to our last focus topic here, which we like to actually conclude a way forward to improve this scientific publication. I think we have discussed a little bit about it, but this will sort of conclude this. I think I go to Mr. Wong first. So from your point of view, what is the importance of improving the level of R&D and scientific publication in our country? And why do we need to improve? Okay, over to you, Mr. Wong.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farid. Can we show the slides here first? The first slide. Okay, earlier on, I mentioned that Malaysia is being assessed and ranked on competitiveness by 2 international organizations. So here you can see the GCR report by World Economic Forum, and also on the right-hand side, the World Competitiveness Yearbook by the IMD. And Malaysia's competitiveness performance and rank in both reports are of importance to our country's reputation, and also for us to attract international investments into the country. Next slide, please. Okay, if we look at the indicators in the assessments related to R&D and also scientific publications for both reports, for both of these international reports, we see similar indicators. Yeah. In the GCR as well as the WCY. In the GCR, we have Pillar 12, Pillar 12, which have a section or category called Research and Development, and you can see 4 indicators there: scientific publications, patent applications, R&D expenditure, and also Research Institutions Prominence Index. Okay. Then under the WCY, the World Competitiveness Yearbook, under scientific infrastructure subfactor, we have also similar indicators like total expenditure on R&D, business expenditure on R&D, total R&D personnel, and also scientific articles, which is same as scientific publications in the GCR, just that it is measured in a different way, and also patent applications and grants. So I think by taking the appropriate actions, there is an opportunity for our country to improve our scores and ranks in these indicators in both reports related to R&D and scientific publications, which will help in the improvement of Malaysia's competitiveness rank in these international reports. Next, please. Okay, just take a look at this trend of citations. Now we go and take a closer look at scientific publications in terms of citations. And here I look at the Scopus database, Malaysian scholarly papers or scientific publications indexed in Scopus. And we see here that the number of citations received has been declining quite significantly since 2014, which is a cause of concern. Next, please. Also, from the trend of cited and uncited scholarly publications indexed in Scopus, we see here that the number of uncited publications has been increasing very significantly for Malaysia from 2015. The uncited publications is the area in red color. The uncited documents means papers which did not receive any citation at all, the red color area. So why is it so? Why has there been a decline? A decline in the number of cited documents and an increase in the number of uncited publications since 2015. So it could point to poor visibility, like what was presented by Prof. Zuraida earlier on, poor visibility and accessibility of these publications to the research community. Or it could be the publications are not in the main domains of interest, the current interest area of the research community, or there's a drop in the quality of the publications, leading to the uncited documents here. Next, please. Okay, zooming out again, we look at the bigger picture here in this present era of IR 4.0 and why we need to improve the Malaysia's performance in terms of scientific publications, and more importantly, in terms of innovation capability for Malaysia to contribute towards the overall competitiveness of the country. So in this slide, you can see a report by McKinsey Global Institute on disruptive technologies. They listed out here 12 potentially economically disruptive technologies. Here we can see mobile internet being one of them. We are all familiar with mobile internet. We use mobile internet all the time, every day. The automation of knowledge work, the Internet of Things, cloud technology, advanced robotics, autonomous and also semi-autonomous vehicles, and so on. Okay, all these 12 disruptive technologies represent major pillars of technologies in IR 4.0. Next, please. And also the analysis done in this McKinsey report estimated that the total potential direct economic impact globally of these technologies in the year 2025 is in the order of 14 to 33 million trillion, 14 to 33 trillion US dollars per year. And you can see here that mobile internet has the highest potential economic impact. And I'm sure all of us can relate to this because nowadays we spend a big portion of our time on daily activities that require this mobile internet technology. Also next here is the automation of knowledge work. In the previous industrial revolution, we had automation of repetitive work, especially in manufacturing and mass production. But in IR 4.0, this automation has now crossed over and encompassed knowledge work as well, with the incorporation of artificial intelligence. We also have Internet of Things, cloud technology, and computing and advanced robotics making up the top 5 potentially disruptive technologies based on their potential economic impact to the world. Next slide, please. Let's look at the scenario in Malaysia now on the challenges of IR 4.0. A new Straits Times report published in August 2018 showed that Malaysia was projected to need 500,000 scientists and engineers by the year 2020 to deal with the challenges of IR 4.0, based on statistics from the National Council for Scientific and Research Development. And at that time in 2018, there were only 70,000 registered engineers, which is about 17% of the projected figure. We are now in 2020. Are we meeting this need of 500,000 scientists and engineers? I highly doubt it. So next slide, please. Therefore, going back to what I have talked about earlier on the indicator driver map, while we see that scientific publication productivity and quality contributes towards innovation capability, which in turn contributes to the competitiveness, performance, and growth of the nation, I would like to re-emphasize that it is the key drivers of scientific publications that we need to tackle and work on, and that is the strategic R&D activities and the structured industry, academia, and government collaboration on R&D. So it is crucial for Malaysia to implement the right policy and structural reforms and incentives so that we can enhance and improve our strategic R&D and innovation ecosystem of the country.
All right.
To help us move towards being a developed nation. So okay, that's it from me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wong. It's quite a very rich elaboration there. I think we have very limited time. Maybe last opinion from Prof. How to move forward in scientific publication. Just a short and sweet opinion. We have a very limited time, Prof.
Okay, so as I mentioned about visibility of scientific publication, and here I would like to recommend 4 main way forward to be considered by any related agency. The first one is empowering the roles and functions of Citation and Infometric Division. And currently this center is under the Department of Higher Education. This center needs to focus on the mandate given for its establishment in 2011, which is to enhance the visibility of Malaysian scientific journals. So continuous allocation of R&D, human resource to manage and maintain the repository as a national citation database need to be given attention. This center should not only cater or focus for journals published by the institutions under the ministry, but should cater for all scholarly journal publishers in Malaysia, be it government, private or commercial publishers. So an independent body or agency need to be established to monitoring performance and impact of the nation's scholarly output across the board. As mentioned by Mr. Farid just now, it is not only university-produced scientific journal, but other agencies as well. Okay. Number 2, establishment of a centralized institutional preprints repository. If just now it's about journals, but this one is preprint repository. This is again an initiative that needs to be given a serious thought because Malaysia needs to have a centralized preprint repository. Most researchers do not share their work until after it's been published in a journal. Due to lengthy publication times, this can result in delays of months and sometimes years. So preprints, which is a full draft research paper, should be shared publicly before it has been peer-reviewed. It should be given a DOI, which is Digital Object Identifier, so that it can be cited in other research papers prior publishing. Number 3, readiness on the current development requirement in scholarly publishing. So currently, most research funding agency, institution, journals, and publishers are introducing policies that encourage or require the sharing of research data that support publication. So research data policy in general are intended to improve the reproducibility and quality of public research and increase the benefit to research community by promoting its reuse. And recently, more international journals have introduced common requirements for sharing research data and for reporting the availability of data from their research in published articles. So institutions in Malaysia need to be prepared on how to share their research data. It is not impossible that one day submission of manuscript need to be accompanied with accessible research data. So readiness for this requirement is needed. And number 4, of course, journals need to strategize on how to improve citation score. Next slide. Next slide. So journals need to strategize on how to improve citation score because, as mentioned by Dr. Wong earlier, it is all based on citation. Okay. So, but we need to improve citation score in a legitimate way. Okay, I would like to emphasize legitimate way. Okay, so they should avoid excessive self-citation, citation stacking, which is sisters and brothers journal. Okay, and by publish rigorous, original, and current research topic and publish in high quality journal, it can contribute towards citation score. Another tips to increase citation score is to encourage author to collaborate, publish a paper with prominent author and industry in related field. This one has been stressed by Mr. Wong, the triple helix model. Okay. Research conducted by Jones Events 2013 stated that papers with international co-authors are cited up to 4 times more often than those without international co-authors. And finally, researchers need to promote their work through social media, and the role of researchers should not stop once their manuscript being accepted to be published. They need to promote their work by using social media so that the dissemination, attention, discoverable of the research findings will be more broader and impactful. Okay, and maybe I can conclude. Next slide. And to conclude it, to ensure wider accessibility and availability of scholarly output, definitely it needs to be visible. And one way to be visible, journals need to be indexed in any major citation databases.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof, for a very great explanation there. I think that's all time we have. I think we have exceeded the time. Thank you very much again for the panelists, for your willingness to spend time with us, to share your knowledge and research finding. I hope that this session will be a fruitful session for the audience as well as for us to actually coming up with more ideas on how to actually move forward with the scientific publication. So with that, I would like to thank again for the panelists. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope we can see you in the next possible session. Okay, and before that, I think the organizer will provide certificates for the certificate of attendance for the attendees within 1 hour from now. Okay, so you will be receiving your certificates 1 hour from this end of the session. Okay, I think that's all time we have. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Farid. Thank you, Mr. Wang.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.